To back or not to back?
That is the question.
In Spires, players are builders honouring the royal family's decree to adorn the kingdom with beautiful spires. The only caveat, don't build any towers taller than the royal palace. As players aim to fill their tableaus with spires of each type, they must be careful not to finish the game with more than 3 of any one type of card. Spires exceeding 3 cards mean all cards of that type become a penalty to a player's final score. Compete in markets, force players to take cards they don't want, win endgame icon bonuses, and more. And I still don't understand why you didn't get me to do the voiceover on the Kickstarter video.
What is fair within?
So, Ben, 2 questions.
Yes.
First question. Did you steal the opening bit from the Board Game Geek website?
No, I stole it from their rule book. It was even more plagiaristically.
Excellent. Well done. Second, so how did that game play exactly?
Well, Spires it's like most games I find.
Right.
When you go to the rules, you sort of read it and you go, oh, I don't understand. And then when you actually put it into place, Spires is absolutely fantastic. And now, I have to declare an interest here. TC writes for the show. He's on the show. I mean, I wouldn't call him a friend.
No.
I'm not friends with Americans anymore. I mean, that's the thing I'm doing. So
I'm not sure you should go down that path. I mean, you should be friends with a couple of millions at least.
who? Oprah?
Sure, yeah.
All right, I'm friends with Oprah, but not TC though, anyway. Yeah. But, so, you might expect me to say that this is great. But genuinely, this is not pulling your todger now. This game is great. It's tense. It's interesting. Every time I've played it, it's very easy to grok.
Right.
But it has a lot of strategic decisions. And what's fundamental about this game, every time we've played it, it's been funny. People have laughed. People have gone, a lot. It has that because you reveal simultaneously and you fight on markets against your competitors. And there are certain things that you want that really are necessary for that particular hand for your game to pan out the way you want. When you have to go into a competition with another player, then you're just like, oh, for God's sake, you've ruined everything. And there are lots of moments like that in this game.
Right, you need to back up a little for me because in this spectacular new case, I did not play the game, but you did.
I did.
So you need to sort of expand on what exactly do you mean by markets and competing?
Okay, so in the game, you have 3 markets, and you have cards dealt to these markets.
Okay.
And you're building spires. And spires are cards of a suit, and you put them in a column in front of you in a tableau. But if you go over 3, they change from being +5 per card to -1 per card, so you lose a lot of points. So you're bidding on these cards in the market with separate market cards in your hand. And if you're unopposed on a market, you just take the card. Mm-hmm. If you're opposed on the market, you go into a competition, which means you play a card from your hand and you play it, and whoever fulfills the winning condition, I'm not going to go into it here, but whoever fulfills the winning condition not only takes the card from the market and puts it in their tableau, they put the card they've played into their tableau and all the cards from the other opponents into their tableau. So, sometimes going into a competition might mean you want to lose because you're like 3 other people are in the competition and they're going to shaft me. And they've seen that my green column is on 3. So they're all going to play green cards into the middle in the hope that I win and take all the green cards, which makes my green column completely useless for the rest of the game. And so it really has a nice push and pull, and it has that thing that great trick-taking games have, which is you don't necessarily want to win every hand, right? There is mileage in strategic losing, which is always really fun and kind of counterintuitive to what you think a game is, but that's where the meat lies, and that's where the gristle dissolves into the soup. It's a lot of fun.
Moving on from that, because now I have a fairly good idea what the how competitions work, the idea of sort of, like you said, strategic losing, which I agree, quite interesting. But could you sum up, like, if you were to sell this game based entirely, I know this is going to sound strange to you, on what the experience feels like. How would you describe that? Is it a tense game? What kind of tension is it? Is it the type of game where you try to get into people's heads, or is it a game where you battle chance depending on what you have in your hand? What direction does Spires take?
It is a game that I've played now 4 or 5 times and I'm getting better at. So that's a good thing.
Right, okay.
It's a game, rules-wise, that's very easy to grasp. But the intricacies of what to play when is quite complex.
Okay.
And so you get better as you play. And it also has tension and crunchy decisions and interesting decisions about what card to play, when to play it, when to win, when not to. But also it has moments of breakout hilarity. When someone...
Surprises, right?
Yeah, when someone completely does something that contravenes what you think they're going to do.
Okay.
And it could be... I mean, last night I played a game and we revealed the cards and the lad went, "Oh my God, I played the wrong bloody card out of my hand." So you have moments like this.
All right.
He bid on the wrong market because he played the wrong card and hadn't realised. Right. That's hilarious. But also, people make decisions that seem inexplicable to you. But they have their own internal logic. And there's a lot of that in this game. So it's tense, it's interesting, it's strategic, but at the same time, it has these bursts of release and these bursts of hilarity. It's a really, really interesting, fun, filler-length game with meat on the bones.
All right. So one last question then. Because even though we usually don't talk about this a lot, I think it kind of matters here, generally, because it's a Kickstarter. Visually, how would you describe the art style? People can look at it, but it's different when you actually hold the cards in your hand as opposed to seeing them on the screen. The
art is really lovely. It's reminiscent of that Brazilian version of Coup.
All right, okay.
And it has that sort of watercolory, very bold, strong lines. It jumps out. It's what a card game should be. But I'll come to a negative in the negative section. But the art generally, the pictures at least, are really interesting, arresting, and the colours are vibrant and bold.
But what foulness lies beneath?
Now, we were raving about the great strengths of this game.
Foaming at the mouth.
More or less. But now we're going to rag on the game because we're evil man. So, I have 4 questions because these are basically the stumbling blocks with most games I find, in that not all games fail, but these are usually when a game has a weakness, this is where I find it. Let's start with the first one I wrote down. Rules clarity. How easy is it to explain? How easy is it to grasp? And how easy is it to actually keep the rules in your head as you play?
Easy. My problem is I don't think the written word is very good at conveying game rules.
Okay.
So I often find rule books quite oblique and difficult, right?
Okay.
And so that might be a problem with me. One advantage this game does have is TC does a rules video.
All right.
Which is very clear and very understandable. Also, he's gorgeous, so that helps.
That does help, yeah. Okay, so the next point, game length. Just generally, how long does it take overall, and how long does it feel?
Game takes about 20 minutes, feels about 20 minutes.
All right, so...
These are not negative points. The game length is great. No. It's fine. We played it yesterday. We were waiting for someone to turn up because they turned up late because we were playing another game, and it fit in perfectly.
All right, excellent. So it doesn't feel like it's overstaying its welcome?
Not at all.
It doesn't have like a lull in the middle or something?
I find it's tense and interesting all the way through. Now, I do have a couple of issues that I find unwieldy. You have scroll cards, and they give you either instant abilities or extra points at the end. And the way they're dealt with is a little cumbersome, because you can never have them in your hand.
Okay.
And so when you draw them into your hand, they then have to be discarded. And it's a little bit of a shame that you're discarding a great card out of the game just by the virtue of having drawn it, you know. So basically you draw them cards, you have to discard them. How exactly do you keep the scrolls in your hand then? You buy them from the market. So because you're filling the market with the same deck as you're drawing cards into your hand.
All right.
So if they go into the market, they're there and they're great and you can bid on them. But if they happen to, just through coincidence, come into your hand, you have to discard them. And a really interesting potential bidding opportunity is lost because it's just discarded out of the game through chance, basically, which is a bit of a shame.
Okay. Now, follow-up question. I think you touched upon it a few times, but I just want to nail it down properly. Accessibility. Now, we talked about this before about a different game. It seems to me a lot of, let's say, designer games are while they're aware of accessibility being an issue, they do occasionally tend to veer towards topics or ideas or themes that aren't really graspable to the non-gaming public or the low gaming public. Where does Spires fit in? How accessible do you feel this game is?
I have an issue with Americans making games about royal families. I have an issue about Germans making games about royal families and French people making games about royal families because they don't have royal families. And they don't have to live under the yoke of these chinless, inbred idiots. So they have this lovely nostalgic idea about making something for the royal family.
Right.
And it always grates on me a bit because I'm British and we have a royal family and they're a terrible, terrible thing. But I think thematically, it's not goblins and it's not ghouls and things like this. I don't think it's a theme that would put people off. And the symbols, royal symbols on cards is what normal cards are, right? So I guess it's quite inclusive in terms of people who aren't gamers. And the gameplay is very easy to grasp if you've played a trick-taking game or a traditional card game.
Well, that brings me to our final question, which is the final negative in some games, at least for me. How much does it cost?
You're asking me questions that should be negatives and they aren't. It's $15.
All right.
Which under the current situation, if you're buying it in euros, that's about 25 cents. It's absolutely fantastic value.
Quite true, yeah.
Yeah, this is a drawback, and it's a drawback with every American game.
Right.
The shipping kind of costs as much as the game. It's $14 to ship, $15 for the game. Americans get it shipping for free. And the rest of Europe just has to swallow it. The game's really good. I would really recommend you back it. But absolutely, the shipping is one of the negatives, and it always is with these American Kickstarters. And if I'm honest, I probably think they don't care. I don't think they see most of their market being Europe, being the rest of the world anyway, particularly.
Well, possibly. I could imagine, if there were some sort of partnerships working, they might. I mean, it works the other way around. I mean, I'm reminded of Artipia Games and their partnership with Stronghold Games, which allowed them to sort of put out Pursuit of Happiness with low shipping costs in the US. I think something like that is doable in Europe if there was a company.
A willing company.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about printing costs, and I don't know how the printing costs in America as opposed to printing in Europe at Ludofact or something would change, but I would be willing. I think the game is really good, and I think $20 to factor in $20 to cover that sort of aspect of the rest of the world being able to enjoy it, not just America. I think that's an issue with TC's games in general. They're kind of hard to get hold of in this country.
Yeah,
apart from Viva Java Dice.
Yeah.
The rest of his games are difficult. I had to go to Canada to buy Xenon Profiteer, for instance.
Yeah, that's a drawback.
That wasn't the reason I went to Canada, but, I took the opportunity. And so, yeah, that's a negative. The shipping's a negative. Tobacco!
Get on with it. So now, finally, to sum up, we have a tableau bidding game where we build spires for a royal family, where you're trying to build on markets, trying to get sort of blindsided by actions or bids by other players, have these hilarious moments where your positive points turn into negative points, and as a drawback we have fairly high shipping costs if you're not in the US. All that said, Ben, should people go out and back this game?
If you're looking for a game that fills in that 20 minutes and is familiar yet refreshing and tense but hilariously funny, you should back this. If you like games, you should back this. And it's not just because I know TC personally.
Right.
Knowing someone personally and then seeing them create something that is so good and so professional and so able is really, really exciting and enthralling. But that's not the reason you should back this.
Right.
My personal feelings aside, this is a solid card game that you can play with anyone, that rewards strategy, that rewards repeated play, but is not nebulous and difficult. And you can play this at home with the family. You can play this with your game of friends. If you're in America, this is an absolute no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. $15? Back it. If you're out of America and you can get a group of people together who all want to own this game, then the shipping costs can be deferred on separate copies of games. And that's a good idea. Go on to BGG, get a forum together and say, okay, we got 20 people who want the copy of the game, and the shipping will be reduced dramatically. But should you back it? I would say absolutely.
If you would like your game considered for a Kickstarter preview,
or simply want to contact us,
then send a swift missive to our electronic mail at
infoperfected@gmail.com.
I thank you.